Hi guys, Joaquin Torres here, Meraki Media Experience, Empirical Enterprises. Good afternoon. I've been thinking about making this video. I took a little notes. I'm gonna start it off with telling you guys a story. A couple years back, around Christmas time, I was in a transitionary time period of my life, in between jobs. I couldn't really make a decision if I was going to go hard with this thing that I had put all this time and energy and effort into previously, or was I going to go over here and do some school. Indecisiveness is probably the most dangerous thing. Make a decision, start something. If it's the wrong decision, you're on the move. Pivot, adjust accordingly, and carry on living your life. But indecision, making no decision, making no moves, no good. No forward progress, nothing beneficial for you or anybody, unless you're just, brainstorming about to start out. Anyway, this video is about the most important things I've learned in business so far. Mind you, I'm just starting out my business. Trial and error, again, keeping it moving. But there's a few things, and I'm gonna try to do this like military style bullet statements, just to be clear and concise. But I want to also do this eloquently and with a little finesse. Mark Wahlberg says he wrote the book on finesse in that movie Four Brothers. I don't know. I'm gonna try a little finesse here. The richest people, the wealthiest people, everybody's out here trying to get money, trying to survive. We're just a squirrel in the world trying to get a nut, right? But we're helping each other. And it's interesting, before Europeans came, with paper money and guns, what did the Native Americans do? They spent a lot of time, trying to seek out some kind of spiritual journey or enlightenment. They spent time with their families and they hunted. And the richest folks, the wealthiest folks were the best hunters, because they could feed the most people. As a matter of fact, how that worked out. Big shout to Mark Capuna, Home Inspectors for Utah. Again, shout outs are coming. But it's very interesting, because nowadays being able to get money is the equivalent of who is the best hunter, who can help the most people with the money that they get, because they've squared themselves away and worked on themselves. Speaking of, check your gig line. That's right, the line of your shirt is supposed to line up flush with the side of your belt with your zipper, and that's your gig line. Knife hands. Okay, so let's continue on here. I wanted to kind of start this video out by saying Assalamu alaikum, which means peace be upon you. And I'm not Muslim. I'm not Islamic, but for all my friends out there who are, that's what that really means. And if you say that to folks who are Muslim, that is such a kind thing to do for them, to them, and they'll respect you immediately. Generally speaking, trying to speak the language of the native language of the folks who you're working with or you're trying to speak to, how could that work out bad for you? How could that, they appreciate the effort, capital E for effort, as a matter of fact. How a lot of things you hear, and as soon as you hear it, you're like, that's exactly right. I don't need any more of an explanation. I know that's right. Just, you feel it. You know it immediately. But the most important things I've learned as we continue on here, belief, we'll get back to that, because that's kind of a two-part thing there. But I want to tell you guys a story real quick too. I had an email a couple days ago. A couple years back, when I was going through that transitionary time period, my mom was very worried about me, and she took it upon herself, unbeknownst to me, to reach out to the American Legion here in Ogden, Utah. It's post number 9. It's the Baker Merrill post. and it's actually the largest chapter, the largest post of the American Legion in the state of Utah. And there's some tremendous people over there, tremendous people. Without knowing me and my family, going off what my mom spoke to these folks, big shout to Mr. Terry Scow, Bob Jones. These folks came to my house on Christmas and brought presents to me and my family and my babies. They did more than that, you know, and these folks, for complete strangers to do something like that, it's unbelievable. It's really unbelievable, and your job is to pay it forward and somehow reciprocate. We're going to come back to that as well. But anyway, I got an email traffic from Mr. Bob Jones saying that a local family who had a family member who was a vet had recently passed away, and they were doing a ceremony. And the American Legion does tremendous things. They go and we present arms and we present the colors. We present the flag to the family. And I shot an M1 Garand. History buffs, that's your World War II rifle that holds 8 or 9 rounds. Crazy, heavy wood, beefy piece of machinery. Tremendous, in unison. 3 folks, 3 shots each in unison. The family was there, this huge family. Members of this family came up to us and thanked us for being there. You know, it's just amazing to go over there. All of them were strangers for me, and I was so honored to be there. Something came over me, you know. I really was touched. I met a few folks over there today who were part of the Air National Guard unit that I was in out here in Utah, the 151st Air Refueling Wing, which consists of the maintenance squadron, where's the crew chiefs and the different specialists. Big shout to all those guys. And then you have the ops side of the house, which is your pilots and your boom operators, the guys who pass fuel to other aircraft at 25,000 feet, flying 400 miles an hour at 3,000 PSI. And they give 10,000 pounds of JP8 jet fuel to a very thirsty F-16 fighter in about 3 minutes. It's pretty tremendous. They do a lot of other missions as well, like transporting critical care patients from overseas who perhaps can't get the treatment they need, and they have to come stateside. So it's a tremendous sacrifice, the mission they do. They're constantly on the road, living the road show, living out of a bag. Fellas who do this for over 20 years, what a sacrifice for their families, and tremendous mission. Very proud of being in that unit. So I went to this got invited to go shoot this gun at this funeral today, and just bumping into people who have similar mutual friends, and these folks are like brothers, and I love them. But yeah, again, that's the 151st Air Refueling Wing. SLARCO, the Salt Lake Air Refueling Company, or as I like to call it, UTANG, the Utah UTANG Air National Guard. And UTANG clan ain't nothing to mess with. Again, what's important in business? This is kind of, a lot of it's geared for real estate or sales type jobs, but this would behoove you in any business, really. These things I'm about to touch on. I do go off on tangents in case you haven't noticed yet. But the response to Assalamu alaikum, if someone happens to say that to you, which means peace be upon you, the response is wa alaikum assalam, which means and upon you be peace. So what a nice thing, you know, what a nice thing to say to people. I do want to give a shout out to some tremendous people, some very successful people. They run a huge, probably the most successful Century 21 office in the history of the world, as a matter of fact. Look it up, Everest, down in Salt Lake and Murray. Big shout to John Syatt and George Morris down there. And I'm about to share with you guys some stuff that I learned from them, that I heard come directly out of their mouths. It was one of those things that I knew immediately was obviously correct. They talked about belief, This is incredible too. You have to imagine things, belief, you know. Anything that was ever conceived, built, produced, anything was imagined first, right? Isn't that right? The Golden Gate Bridge. This is incredible. So, you know, you're walking along the coast, you know, and you come to this huge bay, and, you know, you look at across the bay and you look at your buddies and you're like, you know what? We could build a bridge here. We could cross this with the bridge. And their buddies are like, look, you're crazy. Nobody can see it. No one can picture it. It's never been done before. It's far too vast, you know. But one person has that vision. They see it clear as day, crystal clear. You can do it. You can make it work. They did it, didn't they? There's a Golden Gate Bridge there now, isn't there? That's pretty cool. I love that. And that's belief. How powerful is belief? Isn't that true? Now, Jordan Peterson, he talks about you know, obviously there's many things that are important to have a successful business. You know, you have to be married to it, and I mean that in the most respectful sense of the word, in the sense of the phrase, in the sense that there's no days off, right? That phone could ring at any hour of the day, and you got to answer it, you know? There's no weekends. There's, especially when you're trying to get things to jump off and get the horse out of the stable, so to speak. Very important. But Jordan Peterson, he says that probably the two sole most important things are being competent and reciprocal. And one could probably rise to the top of any hierarchy, not that things are a competition, but just by being those two things alone. Reciprocal, competent. I've been on so many things. Regrettably, there's times where I wasn't that. And that's so vitally important. So vitally important. Giving someone your time and attention is the highest form of generosity. I repeat, giving someone your time and attention is the highest form of generosity. Tremendous. Tremendous. Now, consistency. Consistency has proven to be, shout out to Mr. Andrew Huberman, maybe a superpower of sorts for some folks. You know, when it's not up to you and it's up to someone else, you know, and you're locked into something, you know, maybe it's easier. You know, when you're left to your own devices, you know, you have to be that self-starting task manager and leader. You know, never expect anyone to do anything you're not willing to do yourself. They have to see you do it. They have to see you do it first. They have to see you do it the way you want it done. Then after that, accountability kicks in, or can more easily kick in. Consistency. This is a great analogy going back to my aircraft maintenance days in the military. But when you were in charge of this aircraft and you had a pilot stepping out to your tail number at X time, it didn't matter if it was a butter bar, a second lieutenant, or a 4-star general. It didn't matter. There's certain procedures, there's certain things you check every single time. You have a routine, you don't deviate from it. And that's how you make sure that you don't miss anything. It's consistency. Everybody gets the same respect, the same utmost, absolute highest level of care and respect and courtesy and competence across the board. Now, isn't that the way it's supposed to be? Also, I don't know what it is about the Bay Area and the Golden Gate Bridge, but belief, you know, Mark Jackson, he had that young Steph Curry. He had that whole crew, that Klay Thompson, the young guys, when they first started making all those threes. It was Mark Jackson before Steve Kerr came along. He instilled that belief in these young dudes that, hey, you can shoot. You know you can make that shot, pop it, stop and pop. And we all know what Golden State went on to do now, didn't we? So yeah, consistency, super important, super important. this is wicked, huge, important as well. If you ever have the opportunity to go the extra mile for yourself or a client, you do it. Always. Hands down, no questions asked. Goes without saying. As much as you need oxygen to breathe. Always do that. Couple more things, and I'll get ready to wrap it up here. But if you're specifically involved in sales, if you run a company, you know, if you work for yourself, if you do something that, you know, you employ other people, they depend on you, you're helping other people. You know, if you take good care of yourself, that's great. That's admirable. Nobody admires people who don't take good care of themselves, right? It can be tricky, though. Some folks might have to learn how to do that, believe it or not. It's wild as that sounds, right? But anyway, if you take care of yourself and then someone else, like a family, a wife and kids, that's even better. That's even more of a bonus. But if you do that, yourself and a family, and you have enough left over that you can run a business and have employees and take care of other people, now that is something to shoot for. That is something to aspire to do or aspire to be. And, well, that's what I've set out to do now. I really, you know, when you do something like that, what you are is you are the wellspring of life that replenishes your community. Which is probably just an analogy for you're a pillar of your community. And what does a pillar do? It holds things up. It lifts things up. It lets things go higher, reach higher. That's what you're doing to your community. There's many, many ways to do that in real estate. Many. But we're almost done here. RZA, the Grammy Award-winning, super ultimate, maybe one of the best, you know, musical sound production and recording producers, scores movies, acts in movies, super multi-talented people, thinkers, very smart people, produced by austere environments, you know, igneous for all you geology folks out there, born of fire, you know, created in heat and pressure. Analogies, all of them. Like I said, though, I've been touched, you know. Something came over me today when I was at that ceremony. I wasn't able to be by my mom's side this past February when she passed. That affected me in many ways. Not proud of that. Being at that ceremony today with that big family, I haven't seen my mom's side of the family in years. The European whites, the Thompsons and the Dubois, the English and the French up there in Vermont, Green Mountain, the Green Mountain State. A lot going on. Big shout to the Thompsons and the Dubois because I'm coming up there and we're all going to honor the memory of my mother, and I'm looking so forward to connecting with everybody. That's what I thought of today when I saw those folks there. You know, I can't wait for that. So big shout. But RZA says he says many awesome things. I won't say some of the you know, more vulgar things that a lot of his amazing raps, you know, and hip hop. But he says power is the truth. Power is the truth. It's a magnetic attraction. You know, and he also says that intelligence is always relevant. So if you think that you don't fit in, or you're too old, or you're too young, or whatever the case, you know, or you got some complex or whatever, intelligence is always relevant across the board, no matter where you're at or what kind of like demographic of whatever we're talking about here. So Assalamu alaikum. Peace be upon you. Wa alaikum assalam. And upon you be peace. Nice. So lovely. Anyway, I think that about touches on everything that I wanted to speak on today. yeah, competent, reciprocal, consistent, giving attention. Big shout out to everybody. Okay, love you guys. Have a tremendous rest of your weekend.